Hey friends!
Hey friends!
This video is a little bit different from our usual vlogs.
It was originally recorded for an online travel summit where we were invited to speak about what we've learned about travelling Europe by Campervan. We've adapted it slightly for YouTube and we've filled it with real life footage from the road, so you're getting the full experience here.
So if you're curious about what travelling in a campervan in Europe is really about, then let's jump right in.
Have you ever dreamed of seeing Europe at your own pace? No schedules, no crowds, and no one telling you where to go next. Imagine waking up with a castle in your front yard one week, a lake the next, and a quaint village or mountain view after that. That's exactly what travelling around Europe in an RV or a campervan can look like. After exploring more than 15 European countries in our van over the last 18 months, we can definitely say this is the best way to see Europe.
We're Nigel and Sue and we've been living in this van since June 2024.
And before that, we travelled Australia in a van for 3.5 years. So we know what it's like to call a home on wheels, well, home. In this presentation, we'll share why travelling Europe by van is so rewarding, how to go about it, how it's different from your home country. Stick around till the end and we'll share lots of tips that will save you money and stress. Just quickly, here in Europe, they don't call them RVs, they use the terms campervan or motorhome, and they're kind of used interchangeably. And for the sake of ease in this presentation, most of the time we'll just say van. So why travel Europe by van? You'll see the real Europe, not just the big cities and places on the tourist trail. Many years ago, Nigel and I worked for a coach tour company where we took groups of young people around from highlight to hotspot at breakneck pace. And that's great if all you want to do is tick off boxes. But if you want the real Europe, the places the crowds don't reach, a van is the way to go. We call them the places in between. Hilltop fortresses, tiny villages, fresh food markets, and of course, meeting the local people. Beyond the big cities, people are so relaxed, curious and generous. Shepherds wave, families invite you in for tea, strangers hand you fresh fruit while you're walking past. Language barriers? Sign language and smiles go a long way. When you travel by van, you have the freedom and flexibility to choose not only where you stay, but how long you stay. If you don't like somewhere, you can simply pack up and leave. No more dragging a suitcase up and down staircases in small European guest houses and hotels. Packing and unpacking every few days and sleeping in an uncomfortable bed. When you travel by van, you unpack once and you sleep in your own bed every night. Flying, trains, hotels and eating out every meal, these things add up really quickly. In a van, we live comfortably on $50 to $100 a day, including a couple of meals out each week. And the odd aperitivo. Okay, so planning your European RV adventure. First, you're going to need your home on wheels. Europe is small. The roads, the villages, the parking spaces, all smaller than what most North Americans and Australians are used to. Big RVs, fifth wheelers, converted school buses, forget it. We drive a 6.4 metre, which is about 21 foot camper van that weighs 3.5 tonnes. So we can legally drive this on a regular car licence. It's plenty big enough for the two of us. We've got a queen size bed, we've got a bathroom with a toilet and shower, we've got a small kitchen here, and this really comfortable seating area. So when you're choosing a van, there's a few things to think about. Do you want a fixed bed or do you want one that you have to make up every day that during the day becomes your dining area and a bed at night? Do you want a toilet and shower included? Do you want to be able to cook in the van or are you happy to eat out all the time? Do you want off-grid capabilities so you can go wild camping? If you've never travelled in a van before, we recommend renting one for a week to see if you like it and what sort of setup is going to work for you. Should you rent, buy or perhaps even ship your own van over if you've got one? If you're just planning a short trip, it's definitely more cost effective to rent. Rentals run at about €100 a day. But look out for hidden costs when you're renting. Things like bedding, kitchen implements, camping chairs, towels. Are they going to be included or do you have to pay extra? If you're travelling long term, then it might make sense to buy a van and sell it when you're finished, or even ship your own van over if you've got one. We meet travellers who split their time between their home countries and Europe, and they store the van when they're not here. Now, if you don't have a European residency, it can be a bit tricky to register and insure a van here. There are several ways around this, and we detail them in our ebook, How to Travel Europe by RV or Campervan. We worked with an American expat, Marcus, from a company called Carturf in Germany, and he helped us get our van on the road. When it comes to planning your route, think about where you want to go and when you want to travel. What are your must-see destinations? Europe is bigger than you think, and we've found that it always takes us longer to get anywhere than what Google Maps says. Narrow winding roads, small villages, and maybe even stopping for shepherds and their flocks of sheep and goats along the way. We were stopped for about 10 minutes for these sheep and goats in Albania, but we wouldn't trade that for an hour on the highway. If you don't have a European passport, you also need to be aware of the Schengen 90-day rule. So you can only enter the Schengen zone for 90 days in any 180-day period. This will only affect you if you're planning to travel for longer than 3 months, but if you are, it's definitely something you need to consider when you're doing your planning. When it comes to what time of year to travel, summer in southern Europe can be very hot and very crowded. And pretty much all of Europe gets snow and is cold during the winter months. We love travelling in spring and autumn or fall. The weather's great, the crowds are less, and you're either going to have beautiful wildflowers or those spectacular autumn leaves changing. So what's it really like to travel Europe in an RV or a camper van? Well, driving in Europe is not like driving in North America or in Australia. While some countries have a well-established network of highways, you'll often find yourself driving on small, narrow roads. In some countries, the local drivers can be a bit, shall we say, impatient. Not in an aggressive way, they're just a bit crazy. Road tolls vary from country to country. In some countries you pay at a toll booth, some places you need to get a sticker to put on your windshield, and in some places it's all done online. In some European cities and even towns, there are restrictions on taking a vehicle in there to do with the emissions level of your vehicle and also to keep congestion to a minimum. So they're things to bear in mind as well. Parking in European cities and towns can be very expensive and also difficult because the parking spaces are quite small. So we prefer to leave our van in a campsite or a secure parking lot outside the city centre and take public transport in. Train and bus travel here is efficient, it's cheap, it's safe. We love the fact that we can leave the van somewhere safe and we get a bit more of that local experience when we use public transport. When it comes to where you're going to stay overnight, it also varies from country to country. Some countries are really well set up with full service campsites, and other countries don't really have that infrastructure at all. When we travelled to Kosovo in June 2025, there were only 3 campsites in the whole country. We stayed at one of them. It was great, but the facilities were pretty basic. In some countries like France and Germany, they have what are called Airs or Stellplatz, and these are like a cross between a parking lot and a campsite. So they're often free to park there, and you just pay with like coin-operated machines for any facilities or utilities that you want, like electricity or to fill your water tanks. Our van is set up for off-grid living, and we like to wild camp wherever it's possible and legal. This gets us even further beyond the crowds. We've also found it much easier to wild camp during the off-season. When there are less people around, the locals seem more friendly and welcoming. We've even had them knocking on the door of the van, offering to sell us their local wares. Some of our most memorable stays have been in places where we haven't had to pay. We use the Park4Night app to find most of our campsites and wild camping spots. While buying groceries at home can seem like a chore, in Europe, when food labels are in another language or a different alphabet, going to the supermarket is all part of the adventure. Don't expect the huge range that you're used to at home. We also love shopping in roadside stalls, buying the freshest organic fruit and veggies that are in season. When it comes to laundry, in Western Europe, you'll find a lot of self-service laundromats, which are either card or coin operated. These are rare in Eastern Europe, so when we're in that part of Europe, we tend to rely on washing machines in campsites for our laundry. Travelling and living in a van, there are things to think about that we take for granted when we're living in a house. Things like utilities, electricity, water and gas or propane. If you're staying in a campsite, you'll find it quite easy to recharge your batteries by plugging into electricity and to fill up your water tank. And gas or propane is widely available throughout Europe, but sometimes the plugs that go on the bottle can be different from country to country. And we found that the Park 4 Night app helps us find the best place to refill our gas bottles as well. And then there's waste disposal. And I'm not talking about taking out the trash. Your grey water tank and your toilet will need to be emptied every couple of days. In some European countries, we've seen waste disposal stations in motorway service stops. Other times we use campsites. So we tend to stay in a campsite every third or fourth day so we can refill our water tanks and empty our waste. Once you've done it 10 times, you don't even think about it. You will find Wi-Fi at most campsites, some restaurants and cafes, but it's often not secure and it can be really slow, patchy and unreliable. So it's not something that we rely on. If you use your home cell network, you might be faced with huge data roaming charges. You might also be limited in the amount of gigabytes you get per day. You might get home and have a huge bill. So rather than stopping at each border and buying a physical SIM card to go into our phone, we like to use the Olafly eSIM, which gives us unlimited data, and we just get the one eSIM for Europe, and so it works seamlessly as we cross each border. Isn't technology wonderful? We use Google Maps and Google Translate pretty much every day. They're the obvious ones, but there are some other apps that are really helpful for van travel in Europe. I've mentioned Park 4 Night a couple of times. This is like the Bible for European travel. So on there we not only find campsites, wild camping places, but places to park the van during the day where we can fill up water, gas, and a whole bunch of other things. WhatsApp is probably the most popular way to contact people in Europe. Most people have this app on their phone, so you can either send text messages or make voice calls with that app. To make things super easy, we've put together a free checklist for everything that you'll need in planning your European RV road trip. Planning, packing, essential apps, things to know before you pick up your van, and some things that we wish we'd known before we started. It's designed to save you time, stress, and those, oh no, we forgot it moments. Travelling Europe by van is a very different experience to travelling in North America or in Australia. While we haven't done it in North America, we have friends that have, and we often talk about the differences. The first thing you'll notice about Europe is how small everything is. The roads, the villages, the parking spots. But that smaller scale becomes part of the charm, and it's why travelling in a compact van like this makes so much sense. In Europe, the distances between attractions is also a lot smaller. You drive for a couple of hours here and you might have passed through 3 countries, rather than spending all day travelling on the one highway back at home. Often Nigel and I laugh when we think about when was the last time we put diesel in the van. We did just fill up a couple of days ago, but before that it was like a month. And we've done a lot of exploring in that time. Life is a lot more social in Europe. People spend time outdoors and sit chatting, often hours at a time, over a single cup of coffee. The pace is a lot slower here, so slow down and enjoy it. Yep, Europe is not like home, and that's why we come here. There'll be things you love at home that you can't get here. There are customs you might not understand. For example, on Sundays in some countries there are no shops open. In Germany they even have a word for it, Ruhetag, which means quiet day, a day that's meant to be spent at home with your family. Campervan culture is quite well established in Europe, and you'll likely meet lots of other people in their vans as you travel around, particularly Dutch and Germans. Sometimes we'll roll into a campsite and there'll be like 5, 6, 7 or more different nationalities all there. It's like a mini United Nations. And even within Europe, there are so many cultural differences. Remember, when we say Europe, we're talking about 44 countries. Now, while New York might be completely different to LA, and a small town in the deep south, and of course Sydney is different to the outback, but nothing really compares to Europe. I mean, there's no comparing Greece and Norway, for example. So how much does it cost, and how can you save money on your European van trip? Well, your biggest outlay is going to be for the van, particularly if you're renting. Budget about 100 to 150 euros a day. And then you need to get around, so you need fuel for the van. Diesel currently costs around €1.50 in most European countries. So if you want to save money, just travel slower. You can save money by cooking in your van, even if it's only 2 meals a day. And depending on where you are, you'll probably find lots of small local restaurants serving delicious meals. And remember, the tipping culture is very different in Europe than it is in the United States. Campsites are a lot cheaper than hotels. Most airs or campsites that we stay in tend to cost between 15 and 20 euros a night, perhaps a bit more in the high season. But some places are still quite expensive. We've heard of people paying 75, even up to 90 euros a night to stay in a campsite in Dubrovnik in Croatia in summer. That's just crazy. We also like to look for those small family-run campsites, particularly in the Balkans, where we've spent most of 2025. We stayed at a lot of these, and often these are just like an enterprising person who has a bit of land around their house. So they've built a small toilet and shower block, put up a few electricity poles, and started to welcome campervans in. We have made some very dear friends staying in these places. And of course, you can save even more money if your van is set up for wild camping. There are so many ways to save money when you're on the road. Travel slower. You'll spend less money on fuel and you'll immerse yourself more in the culture. It's a win-win. Cook in your van, but do eat out and enjoy the local cuisine from time to time. It's part of the experience. Visit smaller villages and get out into nature rather than just ticking off museums and big ticket attractions everywhere you go. And lastly, avoid travelling in summer. You'll then miss those peak season crowds and prices. If all this seems exciting but a little bit overwhelming, don't worry. We've got lots of resources to help you get started. Our mission is to inspire other midlife travellers to get out and explore the world. Our blog is filled with detailed guides, itineraries, and road trip resources. We write them specifically for travellers like you. People who want Europe beyond the crowds and who want the confidence to explore it in a van.
If you're feeling inspired to travel Europe by campervan but don't know where the hell to start,
we've put everything we've learned into our How to Travel Europe by Campervan ebook. It's a 90-page guide with all the essential stuff that we couldn't fit into one video. So, scan the QR code on the screen now or click the link in the description of this video to learn more. If you have any questions, please feel free to send us an email. We hope that our journey inspires yours because truly, adventure has no age limit. Thank you so much for watching and we hope to see you out on the road.